So it's Daf Lamed Hey, Amid Aleph, where it says Raminhi.
Raminhi, now also a contradiction. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said Nafshi to Rabbi Eliezer here on the Beitsa.
So we have an apparent contradiction between two statements of Rabbi Eliezer. But, by the way, it would seem that we finished with the first inyan. The Raminhi is kind of a new inyan. Right? Okay. Even though there's a vav, Viraminhi would imply that we're still in the middle. That has to be seen. Why would we want to connect it again? Okay, so here we have, this looks like a Mishnah in Trumos. It says on the side, Haya'ochel be'eshkol.
He's eating from a...
Who's reading the Gemora? Who's reading the Rashi?
I'll do the Rashis.
Okay, so he's eating these grapes.
Mm-hmm. Migina.
He's entered from the garden into the Chatzar.
Now why mention garden? Just say he entered the Chatzar. Let's see Rashi.
Also, the Eshkol was eating from the grapevine, a bunch of grapes. Stam Eshkol love Kamar Balachi. Stam a bunch of grapes, right?
Right.
It's not a finished product.
Right, why?
Stam Anavim, the Rita Kane. Stam grapes are for trampling, for using for like wine or grape juice.
Right. So therefore the normal thing in their day was to use grapes for wine, let's say. Therefore just a regular grape is not yet really a finished product. Nichnas Megina, he came in from the Gina. What's so special about a Gina?
Nichnas Megina Shalakta Mishar. We picked it from the Volo Chatzah. We came to the courtyard.
So according to Rashi, why mention Gina?
So we came to the courtyard.
Yes, that's coming to the courtyard. I understand. It's an important thing to talk about coming to the courtyard. That's usually where we say it's Kaveya for Maisa. But here, why mention Gina?
But it's not Kaveya for Maisa.
What is the Gina? What is the Gina in this case? Rashi says.
The courtyard.
No, that's a Chatzar. What's a Gina?
It has a garden.
So why mention it here? Rashi says because...
Picked it from the garden and took it to the Chatzah.
So we want to mention where it was picked. Seemingly that's important. Why? Because according to everybody, where it's picked is pater from Meiser.
It's picked.
So that for sure is pater from Meiser. But now you want to bring it into the courtyard, where most people say when you bring it into a courtyard or into a house, that makes it chayiv and Meiser. So now we have a question. Took it from the place he picked it and walked into the courtyard. What happens? Let's see the Gemora. Shabbatai is reading the Gemora.
Okay, Rabbi Eliezer Yigmor. Rabbi Yeshua Omelo Yigmor. So Rabbi Eliezer said he may finish eating the grapes. Rabbi Yeshua said no, he cannot do it.
So remember what Rashi says at the Machlokus. If you don't remember, we'll read the Rashi, but I'm just curious if you remember what Rashi said. Everybody agrees Chatzos Kaveh for Meiser. A special case of... Okay, so let's read the Rashi.
Eliezer says it's complete.
He can finish off the grapes that he's eating. In the middle of eating grapes, he can finish them.
Once he finishes eating in the courtyard, which means grapes in the courtyard, he can do that.
Yeah, he's allowed to finish. he just felt he had a little bit more to eat of the snack, he can finish. Why? Says Rashi.
Ein Chatzar Kavua Stava Shalom Nikma Melachta. Chatzar is not Kavua, something which is it's not a finished product.
Oh. That's the problem. That's what Rashi stressed before. The grapes are a classic case of something that hasn't been a finished product. Not because there's something wrong with the grapes, just because the minhag of the people in that area were to put them through the winemaking process. So since it's not a finished product, we have a machlokes, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, how to deal with it when it comes into a chatzar. Originally, at the beginning of the sugi, we seem to say you for sure need both. You need chatzar and nigmar malachta. That's what I was learning. But it turns out now, not everybody holds that way. Who holds you need both chatzar and nigmar malachta to be chayv and meiser? From what you just read, Sruli.
Who holds Rabbi Yeshua?
That's right. No.
Rabbi Eliezer.
That's right. The other alternative.
Yes.
It's a good guess.
In your
It was a good guess.
head.
So, again, who says you need both? Be chayv and meiser, you need both chatzar and nigmar malachto.
Rabbi Eliezer.
Rabbi Eliezer. That's why these grapes he's allowed to,
Finish eating.
because they're not yet,
Dava Shalom Melachta.
since they're not yet nigmar malachto, so even if you walked in mamsh into the chatzar with them, they're not kaveh for meiser. Right?
Yes.
However, Rabbi Yeshua holds what?
Yeshua and Elon, no Yifmar.
Not allowed to finish. To stop eating.
Kasava Chatzar Kavua Stava Shalom Nikma Melachta. Chatzar is fixed for something which is a Malacha is not
What
complete.
does it mean, fix?
Fixed means that it's
That the food that you bring into there
it's Chayav and Meiser.
is chayv and meiser. So why do we use the word fixed? Because the word kovea, when you use the English word fix, you kind of think of like fixing a broken thing. It's not that kind of fixing.
Established.
More permanence. Like a makam kavua in shul is where you always daven. Right? Kavua means it's permanent. So we tend to use the word fixed because the thing that is in a permanent place, you say it's fixed into its place. It's an expression, but it doesn't really capture the essence of the expression. The real essence of the expression is it's now become a permanent part of your food supply, let's say. This is food that's permanent by you. Something that's more permanent is chayv and meiser. Right? That's why we always talk about kovea. Shabbos is kovea, Truma is kovea. All these cases we always talk about it being kovea. Because to some extent, when something becomes permanent part of your food supply, then you have to meiser it. It's still temporary, like we said, a snack, then you don't have to meiser it.
Yeah.
So that's always the question. Did it become a permanent part of your household, as it were? Just by walking into the chatzar? So according to Rabbi Yeshua, what?
It did.
It did. How do I know? Because he says you have to stop eating. When he says stop eating, what he's really saying is
Take myself.
meiser the food. Before you do anything more, meiser your food. And it just became chayv and meiser. Ayis lo nigmar malachto. How can it be kavua? It's not finished. But you brought it into the chatzar, a place that's a very permanent part of your household where you store things. Right? Most of their things they did in the chatzar, by the way. It's not like today, we just chutzner is like a very, almost like just a passageway. In those days, the chutzner was like pretty much a part of their house. Most of the things they did in their chutzner. They washed their clothing in chutzner. For all you know, they could have baked their food in the chutzner. Most of their different activities they had to do in their chutzner because they had very small houses. So when they bring somebody into the chutzner, it's like saying now it's a permanent part of my house. According to Rabbi Yeshua, even if it's not a finished product, but it's edible, and it's a permanent part of your household now, so therefore it's koveya for mice. That's how he seems to learn. Although, maybe there's more to his shita. We're not really going into Rabbi Yeshua's shita here so much. Let it suffice to say that Rabbi Yeshua is usually a very chashuv shita. And for all I know, we might even proselyte like him, but it doesn't really look like it. But, yeah, it actually looks like we do. By the low Yigmor, there's a little gimel there.
Was he a Talmud of
Gemora,
The gimel.
Rabbi Gabriel Yeshua?
The next thing, there's two times when he says lo Yigmor. We show him lo Yigmor on what we just said, and the next thing is about Shabbos. It's another thing. What?
Was Rabbi Yeshua or became a Talmud of Rabbi Gabriel?
I don't know, there's a little booklet. You want to see the booklet?
Because the Gemora, I think it was Roshon, told me that Yeshua was Kilas Kippah, he's a Kippah on a certain day.
Yeah, that was a famous story in Rosh Hashanah, where he had a different sheet about when, I think it's Rabbi Gamliel told him to come on a certain day when Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi and Rabbi Yeshua wasn't at that time at least the Nasi, so even though they differed on that halacha, he had to listen to the Nasi.
He brought his stuff.
What?
He brought his stuff.
He told him, bring your walking stick and your wallet. Your walking stick so I can hit you, and the wallet so you can donate to the Yeshiva.
Was it pretty
I once
tough?
had that actually, a guy. I used to be one of the Gabbayim of the shul. And the guy was visiting an older man from America. He'd just come from America. And he really liked the service, and came up to me afterwards. He pulled out his wallet to give me a donation on Rosh Hashanah. I didn't know what to say to the man.
So it was a tough one.
Yeah, very tough. Here. Should be in there, the chart of the older rabbis. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer often argued with one another. Except for Rabbi Eliezer, there's sometimes called a shamuti. He was put into cherem, he was put into nidui. He was excommunicated at one point because he didn't listen to the chamim. He passed in one way, and they told him to conform to the majority opinion. He refused to do it at one point, so they excommunicated him. Even though they call him a Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, he was one of the greatest rabbis who ever lived. But still, so I don't think we possibly
Rabbi Gabriel, he had Talmudim of Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yeshua, right?
they were both coming to Rabbi Gamliel.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So they were equals, they were contemporaries, they often argue with one another. As far as Psak, I think we normally tend to pass like Rabbi Yeshua over Rabbi Eliezer. Looks like here that conforms to the principle. Just from the way that the Ein Mishpat's notation looks. But of course we can't paskin from that, but it does indicate some general indication. Okay. Should we go on?
So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua Amar Lo.
Right, next case.
Shachar, Laila,
What?
Hashcha,
Yeah.
Lele, Shabbat.
What does that mean?
In the dark and in the evening of Shabbos, when Shabbos came in.
Meaning anytime it is the night of Shabbos. We use a plural just because it means any Leil Shabbos. Anytime Leil Shabbos came on, and you were in the middle of eating,
Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yibnu, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Lo Yibnu.
so what's the machlokas here? Before we see Rashi, what would you say?
So I would say that Rabbi Eliezer is not holding by taking Maaseh. It's not Maaseh. Rabbi shows his Shabbos. Shabbos is responsible for bringing Maaseh, right?
Is what?
Is Kovea Maaseh.
Okay, so let's just say it once more clearly.
Rabbi Eliezer is not holding that Shabbos is Kovea Maaseh, whereas Rabbi Yeshua is.
Right. So, and we're talking about grapes still, so we know it's something that hasn't yet been made marmalade. So, and now we're saying in the name of Rabbi Eliezer that Shabbos,
Maybe they're not talking about Shabbos, maybe they're talking about the fact that it's finished or not finished.
Leil Shabbos, when's Leil Shabbos?
They're saying that you need finished product on Leil Shabbos as opposed to unfinished product on Leil
Okay,
Shabbos.
but before we were talking about in our Mishnah, for example, in Beitsa, the raisins were considered not to be finished,
They didn't take Maaseh.
and they should have taken Meiser on another year other than Shemitah. That's the diuk. Right? That our Gemora kept making that diuk. On Shemitah you don't have to because there's no Meiser, but any other year you would have to because you were just Kovea Meiser. What made it Kovea Meiser? The Dibur, or saying you wanted to eat from there the next day,
That's the argument.
or the Shabbos. So we had said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer what? Sruli.
So it's a dibur. But as we see, now it says in this process, says the Shabbos is good.
Right? We said it has to be Shabbos. Why? Because there's only the two alternatives, seemingly. Right? Either Shabbos is Kovea for Meiser in our Mishnah, or Dibur. Now, in Rabbi Eliezer himself, were we allowed to say that the Dibur was Kovea? What proved that you can't say that? Look at the top Rashi, V'halo Mosra Choser.
Allah Mosra Choser, because Torah, he actually says that he did a Maaseh, he actually took him back.
Okay. But Rashi says the pshat in the Gemora is Heichi Matzis Lameimar. How can you possibly say
The Kavisa Mishal Dibur, that
that the Kavius in the Mishnah, which means that you
that
have to take Meiser on Mishnahs. If it wasn't Shemitah, you'd have to take Meiser. That Kavius was what? Mishum,
Dibur,
because of the Dibur. And not what?
because of the Maaseh. Not because of Shabbos.
Right? And that we have to say it's because of Shabbos, because it's impossible to say the Dibur because of that Beitsa or Mishnah that says Mosra Choser. Right? As Rashi said, if a mice putting it on your plate isn't Kovea for Meiser, then certainly just a Dibur is not. So let me ask you again. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if I'm eating grapes and it becomes Shabbos, can I continue eating those grapes? Why isn't Shabbos Kovea for Meiser? I thought you said in Rabbi Eliezer Shabbos is Kovea for Meiser. What?
Because it's a Davash, only Shabbat Kavod Davash Malachta.
No, we said our raisins in our Mishnah. Remember how we got into this whole thing? Rava asked if someone was lo nigmar malacha, would Shabbos be Kovea? And what did Rav Nachman say? Yes. even if it's lo nigmar malacha.
Yes.
And then Mar Zutra said, I can even prove it from Mishnah and Beitsa. Standing on the roof looking at the raisins that aren't finished, he says, I'm going to eat these tomorrow. And if it wouldn't be Shemitah, he wouldn't be allowed to eat it the next day. Why? Not because it's muksa, he just did a hazmana. He took off the muksa. So why can't you eat it the next day if it's not a Shemitah year? Because it would be chayiv in Meiser. What made it chayiv in Meiser? Your dibur. But a dibur is not enough. So what was it? It was, who said? Shabbos. But I want to eat it tomorrow on Shabbos. I designated to eat it on Shabbos.
So as a said you could continue.
So how can he say you can continue if it's chayiv in Meiser? It must be it's not chayiv in Meiser. Why isn't it chayiv in Meiser? I thought you said Shabbos is koveya for Meiser. Even if it's lo nigmar malacha. So that's what Rashi said before. The Raminhi is going to be a contradiction of one statement of Rabbi Eliezer on another. What are the two statements of Rabbi Eliezer now that we see are contradictory?
One he says Shabbos is covered for Torah Shalom.
When did he say that? He didn't exactly say it, but he indirectly said it.
In the case of the Ta'ini.
Where?
In the case of the Ta'ini.
What Ta'ini?
The kids hit the Ta'ini.
No, because that's a finished product. Ta'ini are a finished product. That's a Beferish Mishnah. That's not Rabbi Eliezer. That's just a Mishnah in Maestros. They hit the Te'inim, it's Chayiv and Meiser. You know why? Because it's Nigmar Malacha. That's what Rava said. I know it works for Nigmar Malacha. It can even work for Lo Nigmar Malacha. That's what was bothering Rava. That's why he asked his Rabbi Yeshaya. That's why this whole sugi is only questioning Lo Nigmar Malacha. Nigmar Malacha we know. It's a Mishnah in Maestros. Tinokos. So that's the contradiction according to Rashi. That's now the contradiction that in our Mishnah in Beitsa, what did Rabbi Eliezer say? He's one of the two people in our Mishnah, the Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer. It would be kaveh for Meiser, right? Just Shabbos. And how do we know it's Shabbos and not as Dibur? Because the Gemora said over here, Heichi matzis l'meimer kaveh mishum Diburhu. Right? Because of the case of the Mosra Chosra. Right? So it must be the Shabbos. So in Rabbi Eliezer, in our Mishnah in Beitsa, we have to admit that at least according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's because of Shabbos and not because of Dibur.
And here it says Shabbos is not Kaveya.
And here it seems like, even though again, he's not saying it directly, but indirectly saying, you were eating something lo mikra malakta, came in Shabbos, you can continue eating, because not Chayv and Meiser. Just like he said, the Chatzar is not Kaveya, a lo nigmar malacha. He's saying Shabbos is not Kaveya. He's making the two equal now. Right? Are there newsletters in that bag?
Yes. It's coming back.
So now we understand what the Ramini was all about, right? This is called one statement of Rabbi Eliezer is contradicting another statement of Rabbi Eliezer. Did he actually come out and say these things? No, but as far as learning is concerned, we always say a diuk is as strong as if the person said it, but feverish. So even if he didn't say it explicitly, but his words definitely imply in each Mishnah the opposite halacha. Either Shabbos is kaveya lo nigmar halacha, or Shabbos is not kaveya. And Beitsa seems to be saying that Shabbos is kaveya for Meiser, even lo nigmar halacha. Bayas, which is now a Mishnah in Trumos, he's saying Shabbos is not kovea for meisters, as opposed to
Yeshua.
Rabbi Yeshua continue Shabbatai.
It's no nigmor. You cannot eat it.
Cannot finish the bunch of grapes because
Sham.
he holds, like we said before, like Rav Nachman said, right, that Shabbos is kovea for even if lo nigmor malach. Okay, so now we have a contradiction. Rabbi Eliezer, we hope someone bails us out. Is there any Rashi on this?
The real explanation?
Huh? You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
There must be two hachigas in
Oh. Well, this is of the wide lines. This is like this. Go ahead. Which means.
The Shabbos not entered.
Wait, what?
Got dark.
Oh, I said it ended.
Entered.
Oh, entered. Got dark, right? The night got dark, meaning night has come upon us. It's for sure Shabbos, right? Getting dark means like 3 stars, etc. That's the beginning of Shabbos, according to everyone. So then what?
Rabbi Eliezer, Yigmar. Rabbi Eliezer says that it does finish.
He should finish, or he's allowed to finish, however you read that.
Imratza Ligmar.
Again, Rashi says the same thing as he said before. It doesn't mean you have to finish.
He wants to finish.
If you want to, you can finish. You don't have to finish, right? Small portions, right? That's healthy, maybe. You don't have to finish. It's not like a Jewish mother. You have to finish. No.
Yeah, he just like.
Right.
The Oma B'Chatzah.
Just like who said in the Chatzar?
Rabbi Eliezer.
Rabbi Eliezer. Just like Rabbi Eliezer said regarding Chatzar.
The Oma B'Shabbos Yigmar Chilasa.
Same thing, right? In other words, in both places, even though Chatzar normally has a power to be Kovea for Meiser, Shabbos also has a power, as we know from the Tinokos, to be Kovea for Meiser, but only if it's Nigmar Malachta. So the same thing is in both. Because Ain
Shabbos Kavua Stava Shalom Nigmar Malachta. Shabbos is not fixed.
doesn't make it a permanent part of your food supply to be Chayiv and Meiser.
Yeah.
If it's lo nigmar malachta, if it's something that is not yet finished product. Right, we know if it's finished product, then by the Tinokos we saw Shabbos is Kaveh. If it's lo nigmar malachta, then it becomes controversial.
So why is he saying you can eat it?
Because it's not Kaveh for Meiser. It's like eating a snack before, right? You can eat a snack.
This is not finished.
It's lo nigmar malachta. Grapes in general are considered not finished.
So that's a snack.
Grapes are not a finished product, so if you're not eating it as a meal, then it's just a snack.
Right. So
This fellow is just eating a snack.
Okay.
No. Umisnisim.
Nisim Ukmina. Tana Rabbi Eliezer. In our Mishnah itself
Yeah, meaning the
Beitsa.
Mishnah and Beitsa, good.
establishes the reason of Rabbi Eliezer.
Who established?
The Mishnah. Not Mishnah.
We established.
We established.
We already have established, right? Whoever learned this sugya properly knows the Gemora has clearly established that
Tana Rabbi Eliezer. The Shah Shnei Shavua. The rest of the year is not Shemitah.
right.
Not Mishum Shabbos Kavua. It's not because of Shabbos that is Kaveya. The Mishum Dibura.
No. No tennis today.
Lord.
Exactly.
Sure.
The Bishar Shnei Shavua Lo,
Lo.
comma. Right? Because you want to play tennis, you have to read Lo, comma. Tennis court's closed. Lo, comma.
Lo. Shabbos cover. Shabbos is cover.
So the reason why Rebbe Eliezer says on Shar Shnei Shavua Lo, meaning what? That the rest of the 7-year cycle, if it wasn't Shemitah, Lo, meaning what? What does Lo mean with a comma?
It's not higher.
No. Think of what our Mishnah is saying. If it's Shemitah and Erev Shabbos you go and you go up to the roof and you look at it and you say, I'm going to eat this tomorrow, are you allowed to eat it the next day?
Yes.
Yes. But Shar Shnei Shavua,
No.
Lo. Other years of the 7-year cycle, not allowed to
Eat
it on Shabbos, right? Even like when beforehand and I did a preparatory dibur. I said, I want to eat this, so I took off the muksa. But Adarabba, you just made it Chayiv and Meiser. That same thing that made it not muksa made it Chayiv and Meiser. That's the point. The rest of the years, Lo, we won't let you eat it when Shabbos comes in. Why? We've already established, that's the established thing, was before that what? Mishum.
Shabbos cover.
It's Mishum Kavas Kava. We know for sure that Rebbe Eliezer was holding it's Shabbos that was Kaveya. Why not the Dibur? Now Rashi's reviewing the entire thing that we said before. It was very helpful, Rashi. In case people don't review enough, Rashi wants to make sure you're going to review it now. Mishum.
Mishum Dibura Lo Matzina Lameima.
We cannot say it's the Dibur, like Rashi said at the very top. You can't say it in Rebbe Eliezer it's the Dibur. Why? There it is. Our favorite expression, Mosra Choser. Right? The salty olives go back.
That's the proof to show that Dibur is not Kaveya.
Right? Even if you put it on your plate, you put it back. Not Kaveya. Kol Shekin, you just made a Dibur to say you want to eat it. So we know in Rebbe Eliezer Dibur is not Kaveya. So in our Mishnah in Beitsa, somebody made it Chayiv and Meiser. What could it have been if it wasn't the Dibur? It must have been Shabbos. So in our Mishnah in Beitsa, Rebbe Eliezer is holding Shabbos is Kaveya for Meiser.
Yes.
But by us here, we're quoting a Mishnah in Maseches Trumos.
Shabbos is not Kaveya.
The Rebbe Eliezer is holding, if it's Lo Nigmar Malachta, the Shabbos is not Kaveya. So what's going on? That's the Raminhi. Now, Baruch Hashem, we arrived at the contradiction. Beautiful.
It's geschmackless.
Very geschmack. Right? They used to say, in the olden days, when you asked a good question, you felt bad because you don't know. Today, when we understand a good question or we ask a good question, we feel great. That's how much we've descended, right? Forget about the fact that I don't understand because there's a question, but I understood the question at least. That's a big achievement. Okay, so who's going to come to the rescue here? Back to the Gemora, back to the ranch. Who's going to answer?
Kedatani.
Taima.
Rabbi Natan.
Rabbi Nassan Omer. So apparently there's either a Beitsa where it sort of comes along and explains things, or because in the side, for example, it says Rabbi Nassan Desanya, Rabbi Nassan Omer. So some say it's a Beitsa. So if it was an addition to the Mishnah we were reading before, then it's still a Mishnah. If it's an extra thing that's like a Beitsa that's added on as explanation of the Mishnah, then it's a Beitsa. One way or the other, Rabbi Nassan is for sure a Tana. So you have a Tana coming to explain Rabbi Eliezer the Tana. Right? Because the period of the Tanoim was extremely long, hundreds of years. So you can have one Tana being explained by another Tana. Normally you have a Tana being explained by an Amorim, which is also a few hundred years later. usually. But here, which is a bit more rare, we have a Tana being explained by another Tana, but that does happen from time to time. Okay, so Rabbi Nassan is going to bail us out over here. That we're going to have to use his explanation. That he says what?
He says, "Lo kishay amar Rabbi Eliezer." It's not like Rabbi Eliezer said.
No, not that. It's not like he said. It's not like he seemed to say. It's not exactly as he seemed to say. Yigmor b'chatzer. Yigmor. That's not really what he meant by Yigmor. Yotzei chutz l'chatzer.
Outside.
So if you go back to the original statement, Rabbi Eliezer, you'd have to read it like this: He was eating a bunch of grapes. He went from the Gina into the Chatzar. Rabbi Eliezer says finish, but according to this, it means finish where? Outside the Chatzar. It's like you walked into enemy territory, walked back out again. But taka inside the Chatzar, you can't finish it.
So that explains part of the contradiction. Right?
Well, no, the real contradiction came from Shabbos, not Chatzar. Chatzar wasn't our real problem originally. Although now we're going to have to rethink things. If you're really saying I can't finish it in the Chatzar...
It's on Shabbos, right?
No, there was two separate cases in the Mishnah. Go back and look at the Mishnah that we're quoting. Hayochel be'eshkol or whatever. Read that. Talks about going to the Chatzar. Machlokas Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, if you can finish it seemingly in the Chatzar. And then there was a whole different question about Shabbos. Two separate machlokas, like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Each one equally compelling.
Separate.
What?
Yeah, separate.
But Rabbi Nassan is going to come and say a similar type of mahalach on both. Now we only had trouble with Shabbos. We really only needed his answer for Shabbos. But it's interesting that he's claiming that Rabbi Eliezer meant the same kind of thing by both the Chatzar case and the Shabbos case. That when it said finish, you know what it meant? In the case of Chatzar, finish it outside it, right? So having walked a few steps into the Chatzar doesn't right away mean it's koveya. If you continue eating there, it's koveya. But if you walk out again, it's not yet koveya. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I entered the Chatzar, that's it. Everything's chayven. It's if that I keep eating at this moment, I'm eating a kavua eating. Maybe because it's not a finished product, and therefore it doesn't automatically become kavua in the Chatzar. But if I continue eating it in the Chatzar, it's koveya. That is a problem. Eating it in the Chatzar. But if I walk back out again, then it's fine.
And the other way, outside Shabbos.
And so it'll be outside Shabbos, but obviously outside Shabbos doesn't mean you walked outside of Shabbos, but it means you waited till after Shabbos. But he's going to say it. I'm just jumping the gun here. Okay, let's continue in the Gemora then. So he said, it's not as, this one translating it as Lo Kisham Rebbe Eliezer means, it's not as he really seemed to say, that when he said Yigmor, meant Yigmor b'chatzor Yigmor. Ella, what he meant by Yigmor.
Well, why does he repeat the word Yigmor?
No, because if you look back at what Rabbi Eliezer said, he just said Yigmor.
Yeah.
So he's saying, don't think that when he said Yigmor, he meant b'chatzor Yigmor.
Oh, I see. He said finish, but he meant in the Chatzar finish.
Don't think that.
Right.
No. It's not that when he said finish, he meant in the Chatzar finish.
Right.
Ella, rather, he meant
Let's say Chatzar. Chutz in the Chatzar.
the Yigmor.
Outside of the Chatzar.
Right. So he meant you can finish it, but he didn't mean you can finish it in the Chatzar. What he meant was you can finish it outside the Chatzar.
Is that Rabbi Eliezer, right?
Yeah. Rabbi Nassan's taich of Rabbi Eliezer.
Nassan wants to finish outside the Chatzar.
That's what Rabbi Nassan is claiming, that Rabbi Eliezer, don't think that Rabbi Eliezer said you're allowed to finish it in the Chatzar. He just said finish. But you know what he meant? Finish it where? Outside the chutzner. So the real Chiddush of Rebbe Eliezer is when you stepped into the chutzner, it didn't automatically be koveya for meiser, but if you start to eat it there, it's going to be a problem.
Outside. So it's not a contradiction there.
Well, so chutzner is different than what we thought, but more importantly for us, Shabbos is different than what we thought. Keep going. It's not that when he said
Yigmor b'Shabbos.
No, not that when he said Yigmor, the second time he meant b'Shabbos Yigmor.
Right. Rather,
Mamtin
Lemotzi Shabbos.
V'Yigmor. That's what he meant. If it came in Shabbos, you can finish, but when? Motzi Shabbos, of course. So that's important for us, because that will mean that Shabbos is koveya if you eat it on Shabbos. That's what we said in Masechus Beitsa. You made a statement, Erev Shabbos, you can't come on Shabbos and eat it if it's not in Shemitah, because it's Chayv and Meiser now on Shabbos when you want to eat it. But on Motzi Shabbos, you could still eat it without Meisering it. Now, if you remember, Rashi already made this distinction before. We're going to see now, Rashi's going to make a distinction. When do we say that Shabbos is koveya? Now it's Chayv and Meiser no matter what. And when do we say, no, it's like a temporary thing. If you can eat it on Shabbos, it's a problem. But Motzi Shabbos is not a problem. Remember Rashi spoke about this once before? A whole page before, on the Amud base, the previous Amud base, I think right around where it got wider, one of the Rashis that were in the wider lines, Rashi's explained there, what he's going to explain now. So let's, we're going to have to go back and see it, because Rashi's already going to explain it here as well. But the contradiction's over, right? Now we've saved ourselves from the contradiction.
It's interesting because the kids couldn't eat on Shabbos, but they also couldn't eat.
That's what Rashi explained before, and what he's going to have to explain now. That's what I just told you.
Oh.
That there's a difference between what the kids did and what we want to do here. What do the kids do?
They hid it away and
So that is, what would you call that halachically, that act? Rashi gave it a name before, if you remember.
He did. I forget.
Rashi calls for it here, or you can look for it back there. But Rashi back there didn't explain it right on the spot. He waited till, I think somewhere here in the wider lines. Rashi said, look at that, Shabbos Kovas. Okay, so the last skinny line in Rashi from the page on the page before, right before the wider lines.
Shabbos Kovea.
So I think this is when Rav Nachman answered Rava that yes, Shabbos is Kovas. But he says,
Shabbos. That's the one? You think he's a Shabbos.
yeah, what does that mean?
Set aside for Shabbos.
Like he designated it.
Yeah. Asura. After Motzi Shabbos.
Oh. If he was meyacheded for Shabbos, then it's Asur even Motzi Shabbos, he says. But
no Yechida LeShabbos. Shabbat Asur.
so if he did not designate his food as being Shabbos food, but then it's still Asur to eat it on Shabbos. L'kol, for everybody. Kish shachila sa, because by eating it, la'olam kavahi. As soon as you start to eat it, we already call that an achila kava. Karuya, right? Because it's Shabbos. So every Achil of Shabbos is Chashuv. So by definition, if you're eating it on Shabbos, you're Koveya. So that's Asr. Aval,
the Motzei Shabbos mutter,
Kittel Kaman.
as it's going to explain.
And where does he mean Kittel Kaman? By us, what we're about to say here. But that's what Rabbi Nassan said. If you didn't take these grapes and be miyachad them for Shabbos, then Rabbi Eliezer said Yigmor. You can finish them on Motzei Shabbos without meisering them, because they're not yet chayiv and meiser really. You can't eat it on Shabbos because Shabbos itself, the achila on Shabbos itself, is koveya, is a kavah, is a fixed, is a permanent chashuv kind of achila. Every achila on Shabbos is a chashuv achila. So on Shabbos you can't eat it because on Shabbos for sure it's chayiv and meiser. But if you hadn't designated for a Shabbos to be your Shabbos food, then on Motzei Shabbos you could eat it. That's what he says over here in this Mishnah in Trumas that we're quoting. That if Shabbos came in, then you can finish it when Rabbi Nassan says on Motzei Shabbos. Alright, why isn't it like the Tinokos? Because they were miyachaded. They made it their Shabbos food. They set it aside as Shabbos food. Then it's chayiv and meiser no matter what. But if you never set it aside, especially for Shabbos, just you now want to eat it on Shabbos, you can't. Because the eating on Shabbos itself is kavah for meiser. Motzei Shabbos, no problem.
Motzei Shabbos could eat it, but Shabbos you can't because the automatic kavah.
So there's two ways. You have a food that hasn't become chayiv and meiser, but if you want to eat it on Shabbos, that itself would make it chayiv and meiser, so you can't. But there's a whole other case where you actually designated it for Shabbos, like the case of Tinokos. And truth be told, the Mishnah in Beitsa, right? The Mishnah in Beitsa, our Mishnah in Beitsa, the whole starting point of our Gemora, the Mishnah in Beitsa is really like that if you think about it. That it's saying, you stood up the day before and you said, I want to eat this on Shabbos. That's a miyachid for Shabbos. So in our Mishnah, you wouldn't be able to eat it either on Motzei Shabbos. But here it's different, because here it just happens to be eating grapes, and Shabbos came on. So we say, okay, you want to finish eating that cluster of grapes? Fine, go ahead, but only on Motzei Shabbos, after Havdalah.
But it sounds as if you came in from the field into the Chatzer eating one, and it became...
Sorry?
If you came in from outside and you're eating on Shabbos, if you came in the grapes from outside...
Why put the two together? Two separate cases.
Right, but if you came into Shabbos eating the grapes...
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like you were planning to eat the grapes on Shabbos. You were eating them before Shabbos.
Yeah, but now you happen to be eating them on Shabbos, so now every time you bite into it, it's a chashuv achila.
But it's not designated for Shabbos.
Okay, so on Motzei Shabbos you can eat it again, without meisering it. You never designated for Shabbos, so Motzei Shabbos goes back to being patur for meiser.
But he says you can eat it.
On Motzei Shabbos you can eat it. That's what Rabbi Nassan's now saying. When he said finish it, he meant finish it on Motzei Shabbos.
But Rabbi Eliezer, you can finish it on Shabbos, right?
No, on Motzei Shabbos. Rabbi Nassan is telling us what Rabbi Eliezer meant.
Okay. It's not what he said.
What?
It's not what he said. Rabbi Eliezer said, if you're eating grapes on Shabbos, carry on eating them.
He said finish them. Did he say when to finish them?
No.
Rabbi Nassan's informing you. I knew Rabbi Eliezer personally. We played cards together. He told me in the game of Pinochle, he meant Motzei Shabbos.
Is it play cards together?
You're walking in and Shabbos comes in. And Rabbi Eliezer would have said finish him.
He's saying don't worry. You can finish these grapes.
Yeah.
But do not do it now. Do it Motzei Shabbos.
Do they play cards together?
That's called Masaber Sa'ozen. That's called to get your ear to open up. Somebody's ear was a little bit closed, so I'm trying to open it up.
It's going to take more than a card game.
figure if not pinochle, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know what pinochle is.
I don't know either, but apparently a lot of people enjoy playing it.
It sounds like gin rummy. You know the purple-haired ladies in South Africa, they play gin rummy.
Gin rummy?
It's yeah. Maybe they play bridge.
All I know is that when I was a little kid, me and my brother liked to play Go Fish.
Let's go.
You ask someone if they have the cards that you need. If you don't have, you say Go Fish, and he has to pick it out of the big pile. It's a kid's game. But since that's all I have is my memories of my brother, it's a precious game to me.
Russia was a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Russia. You call it around.
Yes, we have it in the house, but we haven't played it in many years. Okay. So, are we good?
So
Let's see the Rashi's on
So
there.
Rabbi Eliezer made a statement. It seems to be a contradictory statement.
Right, that was clear.
Rabbi Yosef
Nassan.
Nassan comes along and says, no, that's not what he meant. This is what he meant.
Right.
He meant to wait until after Shabbos, then you can eat it.
He said finish, but he didn't say how to finish. I'm telling you what he meant. He meant finish it Motzi Shabbos, or finish it outside the Chatzah. Obviously, it's not what you would have thought on your own. That's why he had to tell you. Right? We know that on our own we thought he meant finish it on Shabbos, so it seemed like a contradiction. So the Gemora says, I know. But Rabbi Nassan Baruch Hashem told us what he really meant. Yeah.
And there's no contradiction with Rabbi Yeshua?
What contradiction would there be?
That's what I'm asking.
Between two statements of Rabbi Yeshua?
Yeah.
Which other statement of Rabbi Yeshua?
Seems, no, we don't know. It seems like unbalanced here.
Well, look. If you have two statements of Rabbi Yeshua that contradict, we have a contradiction. If we don't, then we don't. Why are you making a contradiction when there is none? We originally started with Rabbi Eliezer in our mission in Beitsa. That's what created this whole sugya.
Sure.
We kept coming back to that over and over and over again. What is Shitas Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah? And we finally figured out what it is. It's Rabbi Eliezer really does hold that Shabbos is Kovea from Meister and a Davar Shalom Nigmar Malakto, and you can see it from our Mishnah. There's no question that Gemora, Rabbi Shimon bar Ashi cleared that up. There is no question. Rabbi Eliezer certainly holds that way. Just the Rabbanan don't necessarily hold that way. The Rabbanan could be holding Dibur is enough. But Rabbi Eliezer, we know his Shita. Now that we know his Shita, now we have a clear contradiction. The Gemora says Ramini. So we say, no, you know what? You're right. It would have been a contradiction had not Rabbi Nassan informed us of the true intentions of Rabbi Eliezer when he said Yigmor. So if we rely on Rabbi Nassan, we'll get out of our contradiction. If we don't want to rely on Rabbi Nassan's interpretation of the Rabbi Eliezer's words, we'll remain with the contradiction. What should you rather do? Remain with the contradiction, or follow a Tana's advice on how to read another Tana?
I'd like to think about it.
Just remember the Tanoim were big. And if you want to really daven hard at Mariv, it could be that Rabbi Nassan could come to you in a dream tonight and tell you what's happening. It happened to Rav Ashi, you know. Rav Ashi once said something against Menashe, King Menashe, who did Avodah Zorah and so forth. And Rav Ashi was very, upset about King Menashe doing bad things. And King Menashe came to Rav Ashi in a dream and he said, if you would have lived in my day, you would have picked up your coat to run to do Avodah Zorah. If such a Yetzer hard to do it, don't think you're better than me. You would have been much more active in doing Avodah Zorah than I was. And he said, and not only that, but I'll show you that I know more halachas than you. He said, when you do a motzi, when are you supposed to cut the bread? And Rav Ashi didn't know. And Menashe told him. So the next morning, Rav Ashi got up and he said to his class, Rav King Menashe came to me in a dream and told me where we cut the bread. Right? He was mefarsing the halacha in the name of Menashe. He was zeicha to Gilui in his dream. So if you want, we can get maybe Rav Nassan to come to you in a dream and talk to you about how he arrived at that conclusion.
Menashe was not pushover, right?
one of the main things he proved to us is that we can't judge our fellow men because we don't know what kind of Nisayan they're going through. We look back on the earlier generation, we think what a bunch of slobs running around doing a Zor and all sorts of crazy things. He said, you didn't have our Yetzirah. The Chazal today, in the times of Chazal, they davened, Anshe Knesset Gedolah davened to be Mevatel the Yetzirah for Avodah Zorah. So we have no idea what it's like to have a Yetzirah for Avodah Zorah.
Chickens stopped laying eggs.
Huh?
The chickens stopped laying eggs.
That was for different. That was a riot. They did that and then they rescinded that. But they did actually check the Avodah Zorah one, and that's why I have no idea. Seems like insanity bowing down to a piece of wood. So we have no idea what kind of Yetzirah we have for it. We can't just make fun of people. Let's try to understand them first. That's a very good point in this Gemora, right? We made an assumption about what Rabbi Eliezer meant, and luckily we had Rabbi Nassim to tell us the true intention of Rabbi Eliezer. Don't judge Rabbi Eliezer harshly. I know what he meant. All right, let's go on a tad. Rabin
came.
Well, that often happened. When Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he brought with him a lot of information, right? That's how information traveled in those days. People would come from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel and tell them in Bavel things that the Rabbanim had been HaKodesh in Eretz Yisrael. And Rabin was a big Talmid of Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabin is considered like an expert on Shitas Rabbi Yochanan. So he came and he said over regarding our sugya of when things are chayav and meiser, he cleared up a lot of things. Halacha l'meiser. Halacha l'meiser and hilchas meiser. When do things really become chayav and meiser? Well, Rabbi Yochanan had a lot of things to say about that. Rabin was an expert on Shitas Rabbi Yochanan, so he came and he told everyone what they were.
Why did they just call him Rabbi?
Rabin was his name. Not Yitzhak Rabin.
Just not a rabbi or a rabbi?
Rabin. You've heard of Yitzhak Rabin? Rabin is a name, apparently.
Yes, they didn't give him a title.
No, sometimes they just have their name. Like Hillel, they say Hillel instead of Rebbe Hillel. Could mean he was big, but could be, I'm not sure. Maybe because the word Rabin includes the word Rebbe in it. Maybe it didn't need an extra Rebbe. Rebbe Rabin.
So, Ki Hatzar Rabin. Is it Amar Yochanan?
Yeah.
He said, Rabbi Yochanan said, Echad Shabbos, Echad Truma. One for Shabbos?
No, it doesn't mean one for this. It means both this and that.
Both?
They're all equal. So we'll make a sweeping statement about all of them. So he said, Echad this, Echad that, Echad this, Echad that. Okay. Concerning all of them, there's one halacha. That's pretty much what it means. Echad this and Echad this, like, they're all one halacha. They're all similar. There's actually, usually just two things. Echad this, Echad that. Like we had that this morning. Echad tan and Echad mu'ah. But here he's saying a few things are included in his list. Echad Shabbos, Echad Truma, Echad Chatzar, Mekach, right? Now a few of these we've already seen in our sugya. There's been a shita that has said these things are so chashuv they're going to be koveya for meiser, right? Shabbos is so chashuv, or Chatzar is chashuv, Truma is chashuv, Mekach we didn't see yet, but right, there's a shita that says Mekach. When you buy something, that's also declaring something to be chashuv, right? I love this thing so much, I'm buying it. Well, maybe if you buy something that makes it so chashuv, it's kavua for meiser, even if it's an unfinished product. So he says no. Rabbi Yochanan held in his shita about all these things. They all have one halacha. Echad this, echad that. What's the one halacha?
Kulam ein
Kov'in.
Kokim eile b'dava shenikmar malchuto.
Okay. So we'll say it in the positive. The only way all these things will be kaveya is if
It's a complete product.
complete product, right? A finished product. Finished product, like the tinokos with the te'enim and all these other cases that we always talk about. Chatzar is kaveya, Shabbos is kaveya, right? Only if it's nigmar malach.
This is relevant to the name of Rabbi Yochanan.
That's right. And it could be halacha l'mais. I don't see actually. Yeah, there's a hay there, so it could be this is the halacha l'mais.
Shabbos,
Chatzar, Truma, Mekach, all these four things, he's saying only work to be Kovea Meiser if it's a finished product. So we already knew there's a controversy. If something's unfinished, we already knew that it's a gray area. Some people say it is, some people say it's not. He's coming along and saying, like for example, Reb Nachman, earlier in the Sugya, what did he say? When Rabbi asked him this question, he said that Shabbos can be Kovea even if it's not finished. Right? And we now said Rabbi Eliezer holds that way. So it's definitely a number of shitas that hold that. But Rabbi Yochanan was his own man, he was a posek, and a very chashuv posek at that. So Rabbi's telling us that my Rabbi Yochanan held in this famous controversy about a thing that hasn't yet been finished. No. Has to be a finished product for it to be kovea for mice. Chatzar won't be kovea for mice. Shabbos won't be kovea. Trumas won't be. None of these things will be kovea unless it's a finished product.
So, in the original Mishnah where you said Adam stands next to Muktzah,
Yeah.
in the era of Shabbos,
Yeah.
is that an unfinished product?
Yeah. That's what we've been saying the whole time.
Muktzah, yeah.
Those raisins, that's right. They're somewhere in the middle, right? We said it was completely unfinished and it's like nothing to talk about. The Gemora says and Hazmana wouldn't even help on that. Back on Chavvat, we said it has to be chazi v'lo chazi, right? Something in the middle, somewhere in the middle. But our Gemora the whole time has been looking at those as an unfinished product. So now we see that yes, there may be those who hold that Shabbos can be kovea for an unfinished product, but it's not so simple, right? It's not everybody will hold that way. And then we have a proof that the Rabbanan there, no, it wasn't really a proof. We were just saying the Rabbanan who argued with Rabbi Eliezer regarding Truma being Koveya would probably argue that Shabbos is not Koveya. Right? Rav Shimi Bar Ashi's argument. That when Rabbi Eliezer says that Shabbos is Koveya, it's because he holds Truma's Koveya. L'taimei, right? He said Rabbi Eliezer L'taimei. And then he said, but the Rabbanan don't hold that way. Right? The Rabbanan hold Truma's not Koveya for Meiser. So they probably hold also Shabbos is not Koveya. That was Rav Shimi Bar Ashi's argument. It wasn't a proof, it was just, again, you can't prove otherwise. So therefore it's very likely, he was saying it's likely that they don't hold Shabbos as Koveya, but rather the Dibur is Koveya. And we never really, went beyond that, so it might be we accepted what he said, or maybe we just accepted it in the spirit that he said it, that Mar Zutra no longer has a proof, 100% proof. He has a proof to Rabbi Eliezer holding that Shabbos is Koveya for Lo Nigmar Malachlo, but he doesn't have a proof for the Rabbanan. What do the Rabbanan hold? It could be, it's very likely true that the Dibur is Koveya. But maybe they hold Shabbos is Koveya, it's not clear. and no proof either way.
And Dibur is Kaveya for unfinished products?
Yeah. In our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah is unfinished product.
Right. From here we'll eat. From here to here we'll eat.
Right. So either it's the Dibur, it's the fact that he said, I want to eat this, or the fact that he was does thing for Shabbos. So it's either the Shabbos factor or just the fact that he was made a Dibur that he wants to eat it. So we've had two ways of looking at it, and even though in Rabbi Eliezer we said it has to be the Shabbos factor because he doesn't hold a Dibur, but in the Rabbanan it remained possible at least that they hold the Dibur's Koveya, not Shabbos.
I understand this whole thing. It's kind of giving me a headache.
Alright, well, we can either go on, and especially if we let Sruli read, you get a little bit of a break there. There's a lot of rushes.
I mean, I'd like Sugi to read, but I mean, the whole story.
Well, it is a long sugi, let's put it this way. Most sugis are much smaller. We even now had a sugi which is sprawling over 2 pages, so a lot of steps that you have to just keep reviewing them in your head. Especially, I think, when the Gemora came to a conclusion. But about Rabbi Eliezer, we now have a clear conclusion. In the Rabbanan, we don't have a clear conclusion, but we do have Rav Shimi Bar Ashi taking on the antagonist approach, which is that Mar Zutra can't prove anything from our Mishnah in the Rabbanan, because it's very likely they hold Dibur's Koveya. But that remains a question. You know, we can't prove it either way. In Rebbe Eliezer, we have a proof. Because it can't be the Dibur. It must be Shabbos in the Rabbanan. It could be the Dibur. They have no statement of theirs like Mos or Choser. Right?
Well, thank you.